Hello, welcome to another episode of Balanced Act. So, today what I wanted to talk about, before I talk about anything, today is March 11th, 2023. It is my oldest son's, Juan Efrain Rivera III's birthday. All my Latinos out there, don't be mad at me for mispronouncing my son's own name, which is my own name. It's all good, I'm a New Yorican. It's his birthday today, he's 20 years old, so I'm gonna shout out to my son, wish him a happy birthday. Love you, big guy, I'm so proud of you. Damn, can't believe you're 20. So anyway, aging myself, shit, I got a 20-year-old, I don't mind, right? I ain't telling y'all. So anyway, shout out to my son. Today I wanted to talk just real quick about spiritual teachers and practical teachers. So the point of this channel, the reason why I started this channel was to look at spiritual teachings, you know, whether you want to call it self-help or whatever, bullshit, woo-woo, and also practical teachings, whether you want to call that, you know, unrealistic, or I can't do that, or, you know, the best and hardest way to go about life. Stoicism is what I like to call it, modern day Stoics. I wanted to talk about the teachers that I follow, inspire me the most, and where I think they're at on the scale. I think of it as kind of a scale. So there's the extreme sides, which I've talked about in exhaustion, I don't know the word for it, but I've talked about it a lot. Abraham Esther Hicks on the spiritual or on metaphysical side of teachings, and David Goggins, I would say, is on the other side of the extreme, on the practical or stoic, modern day stoic side of teaching. Okay, so there's a lot of people in between. There's maybe some people maybe kind of towards the middle, and people kind of, you know, over here, and maybe people are more off towards the extreme. So first look at the spiritual side of things. So the person that got me into this in general, and also I want to talk a little bit about how they may benefit you, about how they benefited me and how they may benefit you. So number one, I want to talk about, just real quick, recommend Deepak Chopra. So Deepak Chopra, I heard about, first of all, when I was a little kid in the 90s, because my mom was in love with him and talked about him all the time. And, you know, she listened to his audio tapes and she would read his books and always talk about him. She was really turned on to him. I forgot who turned her on to him. I think it was my sister Sierra, but I'm not sure. But at any rate, so I didn't get into him though till 2017, which my mother recommended that I read his book, 7 Spiritual Laws to Success. That book was life-changing for me. Recommended it to my boy, Ron Saunders, aka Styles, Cinema Styles out there, what's up? Shout out to Cinema Styles. You know, I recommended the book for him. It's life-changing for him and his wife, Selena. Shout out to Selena. So, you know what I mean? So, it changed our lives, man. It really did. I think it helped my boy Ron. My boy Ron has recently come to a lot of success, and I think that book has helped him with that. It definitely put me on the path to my own personal spiritual practice, which allowed me to cope with a lot of trauma, a lot of nonsense that was going on upside here, and really changed the game for me as far as pursuing money and pursuing career. And I probably wouldn't have the success I have as a graphic designer without it myself. So shout out to Deepak Chopra. Highly recommend his book, 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. He's got a lot of great books out there. So yeah, definitely recommend him. Then also on the more spiritual side of things, also let me say Deepak Chopra is probably more towards the extreme side, a little bit more towards going to Abraham Esther Hicks, but he also has a lot of grounded information too. So he's not quite as far as her, but he's over there somewhere like here. Say this is the middle, he's like here, and Hicks is here, and he's like here. Then we move a little bit more towards the center, we get Jay Shetty. Now Jay Shetty I love. Jay Shetty, he was a Buddhist monk in India. Originally he was just a kid that grew up in England, and I think he wanted to be a doctor or a businessman or something like that. I forget his origin story. And like he's a superhero or something, his origin story. Anyway, I forget his story initially, but you know, he was a kid growing up in England or the UK, and he was off to college and this and that, trying to follow his parents' dreams for him, which then he decided that he wanted to follow his own dream, or follow his own path at least, and become a Buddhist monk. So he was a Buddhist monk for several years. Then he came back, and then I think he was working for like I forget some streaming service. And then he went on, made his own podcast. He's one of my inspirations for making this podcast, and he's brilliant. I love him so much. He really is a brilliant young man. I believe he's younger than me, and I believe he's still in his 30s. I'm not sure, but he's brilliant. His stuff he's got to say is incredible. And I love how he takes very metaphysical, spiritual teachings, but he also applies science to them. He's very tuned into pop culture as well. So he'll use a lot of pop culture references for what he does. He'll talk to a lot of celebrities, modern celebrities, younger celebrities. He's very focused on the youth. You know, even though he's starting to age himself now, he's still very much focused on the youth and bringing them this message of wellness and positivity and spirit. So shout out to Jay Shetty. Definitely recommend him highly. One of my boys put me on who's around the Jay Shetty area, maybe a little bit more off to the right from Jay Shetty, is Hines. I recommend Hines. My boy Zach, aka Energy Vibes, he recommended Hines to me. I definitely recommend Hines. He's a cool brother. I believe he's Jamaican. I don't know. He's definitely Caribbean for sure. Shout out for being Caribbean. I'm Caribbean myself. Afro-Latino, what up? He's not Afro-Latino, by the way, but I am. So yeah, I recommend him. I love his vibe. He gives great information, and sometimes it's just cool just to go online and chill with him and drink tea with him. This boy, tea game is on point. So definitely recommend Hines. Another spiritual teacher I want to recommend before I move to the practical side of things is Gabby Bernstein. My baby, my girl. I got a crush on her too. It's just a little bit crush on her. I think we're like the same age even. I think we're both 43. She's from New York like me as well. Beautiful woman, and she introduced me to a lot of things. She's very much to the right of, I would say, even Deepak Chopra in the teachings, more closer to Abraham Hicks. She introduced me to the idea of spirit guides. She introduced me to the idea of communicating to your spirit guides and them communicating back to you in their chosen way. She introduced me to the idea of God is non-denominational, which was huge for me. God will communicate to you in all different types of ways, including like science, playing basketball. You know, one of the most tapped in, tuned in, turned on people out there in the world is probably LeBron James and Michael Jordan. When those guys are playing, spirit is running through them, whether they realize it or not. Gabby Bernstein really helped me in a lot of ways. She saved my life. She suffers from addiction. I'm not going to get into my own problems a little bit, but I had an addiction. While it wasn't strong, it was mild. I didn't need like a 12-step program or nothing for that, but I had an addiction to something. I'm not going to say what it was. It wasn't a substance, but it was I guess you could say a behavior. And then she kind of helped me with that. Really, I was listening to a podcast and listening to talk to other addicts, and I was like, oh wow. It helped me also realize I was an addict, and then realize that I can break the cycle. So really shout out to Gabby Bernstein for that, how she affected me in my own personal life. And I love her, boy. Like I said, a little bit of crush on her too. She's kind of hot. But anyway, maybe not that hot, but she's kind of hot. But all right, so anyway, moving on. Let's go now off to the practical side of things. So obviously there's David Goggins. Highly recommend him. Been talking about him a lot. We can talk about him no more. Definitely want to say Joe Rogan. I know Joe Rogan's a controversial figure. I think a lot of people misunderstood what his idea about not getting vaccinated was. He's not an anti-vaxxer, but he just chose for himself not to get vaccinated. I think he made his case very clear as far as that's concerned. But that's neither here or there. That's not why I listen to him. I also listen to him for his political views either. I don't really line up with his political views too well. But I do line up for his ideas on fitness and health. I think he's also a very good example for men on how to balance your life with your fitness, with your health, with your career. He's a drug user. He's also drinks alcohol, but he's neither a drug addict nor an alcoholic. He knows how to balance it out. He knows how to have fun with that. I partake in some things, but alcohol, we could say, and maybe something else I won't talk about, but maybe a little bit of cannabis here and there. But he really shows you how to live it balanced, and it's incredible to see that live example. That live example of, oh, wow, you really can balance all of this. You can balance career, you can balance health, and you can balance having fun. Balance and keep it up with your relationships with men, women, your family, his wife, his kids, and then also just have a broad range of friends. I mean, this guy's got so many different type of friends. I mean, he hangs out with these kind of like red state bow hunters, all the way down to homosexual deadlifters, So he's got a wide range of friends. It's kind of crazy to see. And just to see him interview everyone from scientists to like just guys that he chills with at the comedy club. So definitely recommend Joe Rogan for that. But also, like I said, he's got a wide range of interests and he's got a wide range of things he talks about. He's not a teacher by any means. I feel like he teaches by example. So I do recommend him, but with a grain of salt, because that's not the point of his podcast. Point of his podcast is to entertain and to show his interest. But you can pick up, especially as a man, I feel, some really good nuggets of information on how to balance your life, especially when it comes to wellness, fitness, and career. So now, who else on the practical side? Definitely Tony Bet David, recommend him. Bet David was somebody that I discovered, I think just watching some podcast or another. And he's a gentleman, he's about my age, I think, also in his 40s. And he's from the Middle East, and I believe he's from Iraq. And as a young man, he escaped Iraq with his parents. He said one of his last memories was like a freaking, I think it was a bridge blowing up behind him after him and his family just crossed that bridge in a car. So he came over here to the States and he struggled. He struggled with his family and everything. They were broke. I think he was like selling like memberships for some gym and he got screwed over doing that. And then his man decided just to venture off on his own. I think he was selling like insurance or something after that. Got screwed over doing that, and then he became his own businessman. So we got this guy who went from a refugee of war in the Middle East. He comes over here, gets screwed over a few times, and still as a young man, he went and started his own business. And just through his own perseverance, he was a self-made billionaire, multi-billionaire. I love him. I love him so much. To check him out, definitely recommend his book, Your Next 5 Moves. And then also recommend his podcast. Give me a second to think of the name. His podcast is Valuetainment. So I highly recommend Valuetainment. Those on the political or concerned about the political spectrum, this man is right-leaning. I'm going to warn you of that. Don't agree with his politics. I really don't. But I definitely agree with his advice on how to start business, how to conduct yourself around other people, and also just how to communicate and network, basically. Those are things I really learned from him. And he'll give you really good steps on how to basically build yourself to a successful individual. So that's definitely on the practical side of things. One last person I want to recommend from the practical side of things is Neil deGrasse Tyson. Kind of like Joe Rogan, he's not a teacher per se for this sort of thing, where it comes to teaching you about how to better yourself as a human being. I think he teaches you by example. Now, he is a teacher. He teaches astrophysics. He considers himself an educator. He said that himself several times. But when it comes to educating people in science. But I found him useful in the sense of educating me on how to conduct yourself around others, how to interview people, and how to really just be a highly effective communicator. Also, just to be steady. He's just a steady person. He's a very steady person. He has his views on life that I may not agree with everything that he believes. But I'm very much in tune with a lot of it. And honestly, it's just fun listening to him. I love listening to him. I think he's great. He's a very, very good teacher in that sense. Now, there's some other people that I've listened to that I've gotten some, from the practical side of things, that I've gotten some good information from, such as Jordan Peterson, that I would find very hard to recommend only because of their political views, which I'm just not aligned with. But I think it's important to listen to a wide range of people. Even from Ben Shapiro, definitely don't agree with his political views, but just his dedication to his religion and his steadfastness in his beliefs, but his willingness to listen to people on the opposite side of him, I always found inspiring. And not only that, but his willingness to change his opinion on things. Like he's changed his opinion from talking to Joe Rogan about marijuana use. He would probably never use marijuana. He's changed his opinion on the use of it. He doesn't think of it as this horrible thing you just shouldn't do. He thinks it should be up to the person. And he also sees the benefits, the possible benefits of smoking marijuana because he listened to Joe Rogan. He was willing to listen to what he had to say. Someone with a opposite view of him. And he learned from him. And he was willing to change his mind. Which many people, unfortunately, in today's world aren't. So while I necessarily don't recommend, maybe not recommend, depending on your own personal political views, becoming an avid listener of Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson, which I don't really listen to either one of them. But it doesn't hurt to tune in and see what you can get out of it. Even if 70% of it is chaff, what can you get out of it? So that's it for me. Those are my recommendations. I hope you check them out. I hope you was able to absorb. I know this was I kind of ran through that list kind of quick and furiously, but I think it's important for me to kind of share a little bit more of myself and why I'm doing this and what's inspired me. Especially as I start to grow this channel. I've yet to start advertising it. I know I'm probably going to get a few views, and right now, and those views are probably family. Appreciate y'all. But to anyone who's viewing, I hope this channel is benefiting you in some way. I love you all, and I'm doing this out of love. And I'm going to start advertising it pretty soon. I have a book coming out called Samurai Punk. It should be coming out at the end of the month, and I plan on advertising the hell out of that. But along with that, I'm going to start advertising this channel. And so as I grow this channel, I want to start sharing a little bit more of myself and my own personal views and what inspires me. But most importantly, I want to help you find that balance between the metaphysical and the practical and find that balanced path to your own wellness. Thank you again. I love you.